Any other questions?
So, can you tell us a little bit about Instagram and how you get those people's information into your CRM system?
Yeah. All right, Instagram's weird because Facebook's really easy for advertising, and sponsored posts on Instagram are still kind of, they're really easy to tell if it's a sponsored post. So the engagement on paid ads on Instagram isn't great, and sometimes the engagement's kind of bad. So what works best on Instagram is being organic, showing your brand and doing hashtags and doing @ replies and commenting on other people's stuff. That's the key. Comment on as many other people in your cohort stuff. Like or double tap all their photos and say, whoa, great shot, yada yada. Don't say buy my stuff. Don't ever say that. Don't ever be like, oh yeah, you should really buy my stuff. No one likes that. Like, you're just engaging. You're being cool. So then how great. Well, what happens is, more often than not, there's a law of reciprocity. Does anyone know what that means? The law of reciprocity means if I give you something, you're going to feel inclined to give me something back. Believe it or not, psychology. So you're going to say, oh, God, this guy went through and liked all my photos. Man, I should just, wow, he's got a cool icon. I'll check it out. A lot of times they'll land on your Instagram, they'll look at your stuff, like, well, that's a cool pic. Oh, cool little inspirational thing. Yeah, I'm going to like them. Or whatever. I'm going to like that brand. Now they are in my Instagram list. So how do I get them from there to there? Well, actually, a lot of the time, people will see your products on there or services, and they'll go to your website. But you also, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but you also do some type of promotion or contest on your Instagram. So you could say, we're giving away 5 free trucker hats. Go to our website, fill this out, and your chance to win. Or we're giving away 1,000 free trucker hats. So people feel like, oh wow, I'm gonna totally probably get one. So they'll go there, and of course you have to give it to them. They'll go to that website and they'll fill it out. Or new series on geocaching and why it's taking over the world. Or 12 new some link bait stuff, right? 12 reasons why celebrities hate geocaching. Whatever. Stuff like that works. So that's how you get them in. Anything else?
What options do you recommend to be able to post to social media all at once without having to spend time in each one?
So there's software to do that. I'm sure you've probably seen some of it. Buffer. Who's heard of Buffer? Anyone heard of Buffer? Buffer's awesome. So another one's Hootsuite, but Buffer is you can schedule your posts too. So you can use one platform, schedule to Instagram, Twitter, I think LinkedIn too, Facebook, and you can schedule it to do all the posts. And also, you don't want to do one post and share the same post across all platforms. That's another big no-no, because people recognize that, and also the platforms recognize it too, and it can affect your edge rank, which is Facebook's basically their algorithm on how often you show up. So if you're posting the same thing on 4 different social media platforms, you might not get seen on Facebook. And since they own Instagram, it's my guess, I don't know, I don't work there, but they probably would do the same type of thing. So separate content on all platforms. Now, you can reuse that content, just don't post the same thing at the same time to everybody. So does that make sense? So Hootsuite Pro and Buffer, but Buffer I would recommend first. And then there's a few other free ones out there, but Buffer's kind of the best one I'd recommend right now. Anyone else? Questions?
So you can't have a social media plan without CRM system.
I wouldn't. I think it'd be crazy. Personally, I think you're just wasting time and money because you don't know who these people are. I mean, they like your page, and you can start there, but you're just behind. So if you had a CRM in place and you're collecting your your leads information and you're able to educate them and kind of warm them up. Let's say your product's not even ready. Let's say you're just doing an MVP and you're not even there yet. Doesn't matter. Start building that cult up. Start putting them into your system and educating them and talking to them and communicating them and making them fired up. So when the product does come up, you're ready to release it, you're going to get 5,000 sales, like from jump. You send out an email, boom, we're here. You have all those people warm and ready to go. You just killed it on day one. Whereas instead, if you don't have them in your CRM, oh, now the product's ready. Well, let's start getting them in. Let's start going through this process. Let's start working on conversion optimization. Let's build those landing pages. I mean, if you start now, early, even before the product. Yeah.
That reminds me of Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I've still received newsletters for things I bought a year ago that I've not received.
Yeah. They're just trying to keep you engaged. You know, Kickstarter is a good example. They're just trying to say, hey, we're still here. We haven't gone away.
Right.
Like, don't be mad at us yet.
Right.
Especially with the physical products, you know, that's a lot of those guys, you know, they are really trying to figure out how to make something, you know, and they oftentimes sell it as, we got this, but then they're trying to make some of that stuff, and it's hard. Yeah. Yeah.
How easy is it to transfer the information from like a free CRM to one?
Easy.
Real simple.
Totally easy. So when it comes to your contact list, that's the easiest part. Now, if you're deeply integrated into a free CRM where you've got, you know, all different types of custom, because this whole pipeline can be customized too, because maybe I have in between engaging and closing out, setting an appointment and all kinds of stuff. If you have all kinds of crazy stuff going on in there, it's not going to be easy. But moving your contacts over and having those contacts, maybe you have them tagged or organized in a certain way, like warm, cold, or love outdoors, or, you know, they're indoor geocaching, whatever it may be, that's no problem. So you can start free. It's better than nothing, straight up. And then if it's working, then you can start moving them over.
At what point should you say goodbye to a customer or a person that you're trying to engage? It's been like a year, they've never engaged.
Right.
The email.
It's a good question. So oftentimes you can do an email, which is like, I haven't heard from you in a while, and maybe you've gotten emails like that before. So you send it to your coldest opportunities and say, hey, we haven't heard from you in a while. Hope everything's going well. We're updating our system. We just want to make sure you're still interested in our products. If not, totally cool. We'll never email you again. And you can dump them completely and delete that email address, because maybe they didn't even check that email box. And it costs you money still to send an email. You have, let's say, 100,000 credits a month. Well, if that person never even looks at it ever, well, it's still a credit, right? So you can get rid of them, or you can take them and just tag them as, you know, super cold, ice cold, and then maybe every 6 months you shoot them an email. And
So if I click on the link
mm-hmm.
that is in an email that you send me, that goes into the CRM database as this person clicked on that.
Yep, I know which link you clicked on and how long it took you to click on it. Yeah.
So to Katie's point, possibly, let's say that I'm not buying anything for a year,
Mm-hmm.
but I keep clicking,
Yeah.
then that means that I'm just waiting for something to
Totally.
pop up.
That's
So
right.
You don't want to get rid of me.
No.
If I keep clicking,
You're engaging. You're
I'm not
engaging.
clicking on any
Yeah.
links,
Right.
then-
Or not opening the email, because I can tell if you opened it too.
Oh, you can tell if you
Yep.
How does that work with, let's say, you know, like this Outlook program?
Yeah.
Where as soon as you pull it up, you know, you can automatically read it. Does that count as looking
That's
at it?
open.
So that's
Yeah, there's a pixel in there. So anytime, if it's automatically, then boom, that's an open. Now if you,
getting the emails.
yeah, so I'll I'll know that you're reading. You're opening that email. Now if you don't click on anything, then you're going to go into a different kind of lead, right? You're opening, so that means our subject lines are good, or you're, you know, whatever's going on over there. But if you're not clicking, then, you know, I have to work on getting you more engaged.
Is there ever an advantage to using like a third-party email marketing
summer on my internship, we used something called Sugar CRM.
Mhm.
I've heard of it. It's pretty awful, but
They offer a free version, by the way.
yeah, it was free and it's
Mhm.
crap. But I mean, is there ever any advantage to doing it, or is it better just to keep it all contained in the CRM software?
Yes, there is advantage to using outside email platforms at times, but it depends on what they are. Campaign Monitor, no. But SendGrid, you guys ever heard of SendGrid? Or MailChimp has an enterprise version called Mandrill. Why would you use a separate email platform which does maybe what's called transactional email? Because the email cost is a whole lot cheaper. So I can send 1 million emails through SendGrid for like 1% of what it would cost me to send through Infusionsoft, because they're more based for transactional emails. And transactional email would be like forgot password. That's like a transaction email. Or here's your receipt. That's a transactional email. It's not typically used for marketing messages. So one thing that we do is we will first get a list. Let's say I got a list that I scraped off the internet, let's just say. So I had a team go out and scrape 1 million email addresses that are focused in some type of environment. I then would take that list and run it through a software system that would check which ones are legit emails and which ones aren't. So there's things called bounce checkers to make sure that they're real email addresses. One's called never bounce, and that would wipe out like half of that. So now I'm like at 500,000 email addresses. Then I would take that and run it through SendGrid. But I'd have it connected to my Infusionsoft API. So every time one email went out through SendGrid, it would tell Infusionsoft, I sent an email not through you, but through SendGrid, so it would tag it as sent through SendGrid initial. So that way I could use an outside email provider, let's say for a huge bulk email blast or for some other particular reason, and tag you as I still mailed you through there. Now I wouldn't do it regularly, but it's only for like edge cases like that.
Is there any sort of software that does all of this instead of having to
So
use
the,
4 different softwares?
well, Infusionsoft is one that does everything. Like you don't need to use SendGrid, you don't need to use Mandrill, you can just use Infusionsoft. You can use Salesforce, especially for entrepreneurs. Like you can just use those to get going. Infusionsoft will grow with you. I highly recommend them. They're kind of confusing at first. It's kind of weird to get started with, but once you spend some time with it, it's totally worth its money. Especially like if you're just getting going. Like you can really optimize that to make cash like quick on your business. Like I promise you, it works. Yeah. So that's one piece of software. Salesforce too. They do everything as well, but like I said, you kind of have to buy add-ons through them to maybe get it to what you really need it to do. Entreport is another one. That's a one-size-fits-all kind of deal, where they do everything. Anything else?
What are you doing right now?
So I have 2 businesses. I have one called RaceKeep, which we're raising rounds for, which is it's a web business and app that has the largest database of all races.
I had him put that screen.
Oh, perfect. Oh, thanks.
You can turn down maybe that front light too on behind you. Oh.
So, RaceKeep. Let me pull it up real quick. And then I'll show you another company startup. So I've had 5 businesses. And these are my 2 new startups I'm working on. I'm working on 2 simultaneously, but they both coincide with one another. And then this is my other business. Is this connected to the internet?
Is it connected to the internet? It should be, yeah.
I don't think it is.
What kind of races?
Endurance.
Oh, right.
So 5Ks, 10Ks, marathons, triathlons, Ironman. Should be good now. No, it can't be down. So the other thing too is, I don't know how many of you use Heroku. Any of you guys heard of Heroku before? So it's cloud hosting. I don't know why this isn't letting it. Hold on one second. Let's see. Sorry guys, bear with me. Let me look on my phone. That'll tell me where we're at.
It's not working on mine.
Yikes. Oh, it did? Okay.
Are you hooked up to the AC encrypted? Yes.
Is that the problem?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's probably it.
You need to be on the ASU guest.
But aren't all ASU
Hardwired in?
Yeah.
Hardwired. I always have hard ASU guess. Most of the time it doesn't work very well.
Yeah, I'm good here.
So we've got it here. Why don't we have it up there?
Maybe try a different browser.
Yeah, let's try a different browser.
I'm using software.
Oh, yeah, Apple has
ASU network.
Okay, so here's RaceKeep. RaceKeep is it's a website and app that lets you find and locate any race nearby. So it'll automatically show these are all the races coming up in your local area. 5Ks, 10Ks, marathons, if they're coming up, if they're canceled. So this is actually an interesting system that we put together because there was no centralized database of all the races in the United States. So we wanted a way to collect everything, get images, get data, be the central repository for all that, and then create an API that apps could use that isn't our own. So we're still working on a few elements of it, but all in all, it's been really good so far. We have a data team which collects the data, and we have race directors put in all the races as well. So the data team is local and offshore. So that's that business. And this is the other one. And I'll show you why they work together. Newhall.com is my performance brand, and we make headwear. So we do performance trucker hats. Sounds niche, right? So we make running hats that are trucker hats, but they use the latest in technology and performant fabrics. They're ventilated properly, and they're reflective, so you can be seen at all points throughout the day, throughout the night, so on and so forth. They're really awesome. If you like to work out and you like trucker hats, because there's a big movement in working out with truckers, you got to rock a Newhall hat. So that works exactly. I noticed you guys right when you all walked in with your hats. Don't think I didn't. So that business works with RaceKeep. How does that work together? Well, it's pretty straightforward, right? Anyone who registers to find a race on RaceKeep, eventually they're going to be notified about maybe I got a special on the Ultra Free Air or the Zephyr.
Or gnomes.
Right. Or gnomes. Doesn't quite work, not quite the same audience, but so those are the two businesses that I'm working on right now. You can see how they kind of work together, but it's in the performance space. So I was talking to you about performance space, and yeah, that's it. Any other questions?
So for RaceKeep, does your data team collect data manually or?
Yes.
Manually?
Yeah, so initially, we scraped the web for every single race we could find. So first thing, that's programmatically, right? Then we took all that information, cleaned it up, and then sent what we could offshore and say, this is how we need you to find this data. So find the race name, find the race, go to the website, collect the about, collect the event details, collect the price, and then another data team collect images, because the same people who collect data aren't necessarily going to collect images. And then they add it in our back end, and then we review, and then publish, and then send an email to the race director. By the way, did you know your race is listed on RaceKeep? You should probably check it out. Make sure it's all the information's correct. They get an email. More often than not, they say, wow, that's awesome. This is a cold email, mind you, right? They didn't know we were doing this. We put all this together, sent them an email, said, check us out. You're going to love this. We're a place to find races. And those race directors are pumped. So they go in there, they create their account, they upload new images, they add more races, they tell other race directors, sometimes they tell the participants in the races. They come up, they sign on the website to find more races. You see how this goes. They all go back into the CRM, they go into a sequence, they get mailed about upcoming races. They also learn about potential product offers that might be good, because we also do partnerships with some races. So like there's an Xterra Trail Run series coming locally here, and we sponsored that race. So anyone who's had interest in that race is obviously going to learn about it from us. And it's just a lot of stuff, right? But when you dial it all in, it's worth it.
So who is the race director? What do we call them? The cult.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, the cult, they are the ones, if you can get them excited and they start putting their data into RaceKey and they start updating and then they start telling, oh, that's exactly what you want, right? You want to get the cult excited, and then that drives people to their race, their website, and then he's able to monetize them in a number of different ways.
Let me show you real quick. This is a landing page. Okay, so we send this particular ad here. Be cool, stay dry, and feel so good. What's that? That's a benefit, right? Your next trucker is now taking flight. This is hitting trail runners. A lot of trail runners running trucker hats. Talk a little bit about the product. Show some social proof on where this has been used on. Ironman, Tough Mudder, Ninja Warrior, etc. More social proof, testimonials, why the hat's so awesome. Features and benefits. A little bit about it. Some imagery. Excuse me, sorry, this mouse is very quick. Features. Keep going down. For the people who are really methodical, they keep reading. Ultra Fear is the most first endurance headwear, yada yada. They can pick the one that they want. There's a video explaining it, details. Is this hat right for you? Wow, a lot goes into selling a hat, right? More information, our process, the end. So if you were interested in buying, you clicked add to cart. That's a landing page. Yep, and this is a sales page. So typically what would be better here to do here, this would be something that I would do like get something free, some type of lead magnet, but this I already have them warmed up. And then you know what that is? That's an exit pop. I know you guys have seen that before. These things convert. So an exit pop-up is when I was just moused out to get out of there. Whoa, I don't want you to bounce off this yet. Maybe you should read this and join Newhall Nation. Get selected to beta test our latest gear offerings before we bring them to market. Our members range from Ironman to Johnny 5K. Explore and sweat with us. That's a lead magnet right there. That's them to join to possibly beta test our gear. Because I knew that they were already interested, but they were leaving. So, and then a little image to make them laugh, because laughter helps you sell. Boom. That's it. So it's all connected to the CRM. And now this loaded up. That's weird.
Are you planning to expand internationally with the race thing?
Yes, eventually. So we totally want to go internationally. Just want to dial it in nationally first. Make sure we didn't have any major bugs. And then it's kind of just a different world going internationally. But it's definitely on the list of things to do in 2016. Yeah. Any other questions?
Are you planning on automating the data production process?
I would love to. Trust me. The easier that, and that's the hiccup in that business, is getting that data, getting it right, training the people to put in the information right, training the people how to find the information. That's the hardest part. So our main goal is to get the race director to put that information in. So we just got to start with something. So eventually, all the race directors will be entering in the information themselves. We know that there's about 10,000 race directors. We currently have like 20%, and we're growing regularly with them, but we still have to get them, right? We're still educating them. We're still finding their right emails. We're still getting the right phone numbers. But eventually, if we can get that to 80%, yeah, we're golden. So then we don't have to worry about that data collection team as much. We'll still keep them for new races and people who haven't heard of us because we're still new. I mean, that's a new app. I mean, that launched in June. So, yeah. CRMs, make sure you have one. It's the lifeblood of your business. It'll make you rich. Or at least, kind of.
Let's give him a round of applause.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Let's take a 15-minute break, and Brent will be here for the next 3 hours.
Yeah.
No, but, you have about 10 or 15 minutes if people have questions.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about a macro subject that is near and dear to my heart. I'd like to take a couple of steps back because we've taken a deep, deep dive into the entrepreneur's mindset and where it is that it needs to be, right? It needs to be in social media. It needs to be in CRM. It needs to be with the cult. We know that. Done deal, right? But I wanted to take a step back and look at a couple of global topics. So a couple of you have asked me about how some of the threads that bind entrepreneurship together work. Some of you have been asking me questions lately about the economy. I'm getting emails about some macro level discussions, and a couple of people have even talked to me about oil, the price of oil, and the price of gasoline. And what is it that we need to know? So I started to think, boy, that's a really broad subject, oil. And it is relevant to entrepreneurship because it speaks to transportation costs, right? And if you're going to have something made, oftentimes if it's a low-tech item, it's made in China. And if it's made in China, you're going to have to ship it here. And the shipping expense can be extremely expensive. But before we get to that, I wanted to talk a little bit about how oil works. How oil works and how it works within our economy. And this is, again, more in a macro view, but I don't think there's enough of us that really understand the economics behind oil. So I'll begin with some of the media bias, or some of the maybe we don't call it media bias, maybe we call it the media slant. So many of us have a negative slant towards the Middle East. And we associate, I think, their oil with us being dependent on them, right? I mean, they have oil, we're dependent on them. And I wanted to kind of go through a few topics that I think are critical to you understanding the dynamics between the United States and the Middle East and then the rest of the world for that matter, and how oil works. But let's first define a couple things. Oil is priced in what we call petrodollars. Petrodollars. So oil is roughly 80% of oil is in US dollars. And the remaining, we'll say 20%, and it might not be exactly 20, but is going to be in, what's that symbol? Euros, right? Euros. So what that tells us, number one, is that let's say that you are United Arab Emirates, and you wanted to sell oil to China. Do the United Arab Emirates want RMB
which is the Chinese currency? Do they want yuan? I see Ben over here shaking his head. No, no way is the way. And that's absolutely right. They don't want RMB. If you're selling, let's say you're Saudi Arabia and you're selling to Brazil, do you want the Brazilian real? No way. The Brazilian real in the last 7 months, 6 months has devalued against the US dollar by almost double. By almost, we'll say it's dropped in value. It's been cut in half, you could say. It's not secure. It's not stable. So if you want to buy oil, let's say you're Russia, and you want to sell oil to, I don't know, say Japan. Does Russia want yen? No. They need something stable, something reliable. That's why 80% of all oil, and it's probably higher than that now, is priced in US dollars. Here's a question I have for you. Now, if you've had an international business class of mine, then don't answer this. But what percentage of oil would you say we get from the largest oil producer in the world that has the largest reserves in the world, which would be Saudi Arabia? What percentage of oil do you think that United States gets from Saudi Arabia? 10 to 20%? Anyone else? 30? 30? How about Robert? 15? 7. We get 7% of our oil from Saudi Arabia. That's it. 7%. So that begs the next question. If you think of the Western Hemisphere, which would be North and South America, what percentage of oil do you think we get from the Western Hemisphere? Somebody answer me that. What percentage of oil do you think we get from the Western Hemisphere? Spencer. 20%. Katie. 70%. It's probably, I know it's at least 55%, but it probably is closer to 60% now in the last couple of years. We get 60% of our oil from the Western Hemisphere. Then what's all of this rhetoric about drill and drill now? Drill in Alaska. Go ahead, Michelle. What? To have more reserves, as she does, quote unquote, right? And we want to be more independent. We don't want to be dependent on these Islamic countries. Is that correct? It's also a way to control things politically. But, you know, we live in a world where we need oil. Doesn't matter what country you're in. Doesn't matter if you're in a banana republic or you're in Russia or you're in the United States or where. We need oil. So there's an organization called OPEC. What does OPEC stand for, Katie? Uh-oh. OPEC stands... The Organization of Petroleum, and you need to write this down. I'm not writing down everything I write down. You should definitely write down, but I'm not writing everything down that you need to know. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. So we have a tendency to sometimes demonize the Middle East, and I'm not saying that they're angels or even that we're angels either. But what we do see is the fear that we see is if you don't drill in, say, Alaska, or you don't become independent, then Saudi Arabia at any second, or the UAE at any second, could cut off our oil right now. That's the fear. That's the fear that we have. That's why you hear we need to become oil independent, not oil dependent. Well, first of all, we're getting about 60% of our oil from the Western Hemisphere. So that's up. In the last 6 years, that's gone from about 46, 47% to over 55, 60%. So many people, I can tell you, a lot of people believe that we get 80+% of our oil from the Middle East. There's a lot of people that believe that. I would test that. Ask somebody, ask another student outside of class, how much oil do you think we get from the Middle East? Just for kicks, just to see what they say. I'm willing to bet that most people say around 80%. Now, OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Companies, these are countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Nigeria, Venezuela. And they are somewhat of a cartel. They are somewhat a cartel. But what's interesting is most of the Middle Eastern countries especially Saudi Arabia, have a very good relationship with the United States. And you wonder, well, that doesn't mean that makes us safe. They could still cut, Senor Chavez, they could still cut our oil off any day. Again, that's somewhat the media slant, if you will. But let's take a look at how this works. So OPEC, that's petroleum. Thank you. Yes, that is petroleum. OPEC sends oil to the U.S., Europe, the EU, Asia, everywhere, right? And you would think, well, okay, so they send us oil, we send them money. Right? I mean, they sell it, we buy it. That's not exactly how it works. You see, in the Middle East, they have a religious doctrine called Sharia law. And Sharia law covers a lot of things. One of them is in finance, where banks cannot charge interest, nor can they get interest, nor can they benefit. So in many ways, the banking system in the Middle East, if it is an Islamic country, by design does not have the absorptive qualities that a Western bank does. They can't take in all of that money. And so the money has to, they have to get paid, right? I mean, it's not like they're giving it away for free. The money goes to what we call MBCs, monetary banking centers. what are these? What is a monetary banking center? That's right. These are just Western banks. Barclays, Chase, Wells Fargo. These are this is where the money goes. It goes into Western banks. And then a little bit of it might go to their country. But Chase probably has branches all over. I don't know, Katie. I don't know if they have a different name or if it's Chase or whatever. But it is kept in monetary banking centers, and most of it stays in U.S. dollars or euros. So I guess the question that I have for you is, would Saudi Arabia ever cut off our oil supply? If they did, it would be, number one, it wouldn't be financially responsible of them. But number two, the U.S. or Europe would probably repatriate their money. Oh, okay, well, you cut off the oil. Well, you know what? We like your bank account. And those are U.S. dollars. So we're going to keep those. It just wouldn't happen. It wouldn't have. It happened in the 70s. There was an embargo. But the relationship wasn't that terribly good. And oil wasn't necessarily priced in U.S. dollars. We have to be aware that the threads that bind our economies together are what keep us from war and keep us from embargoes. The threads that bind our economies together. So there was a Thunderbird, the founder of Thunderbird, and Yunt, I believe his name is, had a saying. And that saying is, countries that trade seldom have wars. And look at China and the U.S. Politically, we are diametrically opposed to one another. China has what kind of a political system, Robert? Communist. It's a communist government, which is the complete opposite of a republic, right? But they have a capitalistic economic system. We too run on capitalism. See, so there's a difference. Democracy, capitalism. Communism, capitalism. We used to believe that you could only have capitalism with democracy. Well, that's clearly not the case. But countries that trade together seldom have wars. And we need to understand that we do a lot of trade with the Middle East. We're beginning to starting to bind our threads together. So you could look at a country like Russia, where trade is slowing to a halt. And you could say that's where I'm most concerned with a potential war. It's not China. It's not Saudi Arabia. It's not the United Arab Emirates. It's Russia. It's Russia. Right now, North Korea. Possibly Venezuela. It used to be Cuba. But guess what? Huh? We just started opening up trade with them. Right? We just started lifting the sanctions. They just opened the embassy back up, the same embassy that they used 55 years ago. And they're starting to allow commerce between the U.S. slowly and Cuba. And it's not necessarily a good thing to have a neighbor so close to you that is an aggressor or aggressive, right? Regardless of whether you think it's good or bad, it's happening. It's happening. And I particularly believe in the philosophy that countries that trade together seldom have wars. So for me, I don't care about the politics. I care about the safety. I care about being able to make money. I care about having some friendly relations. And you saw the president of China, I think he's still in the United States. He's still in the United States right now. The president of China has been here for about 4 days, I want to say. And we don't have a great relationship politically with China. But we trade a lot with them. 45% of all U.S. goods that come from China, 45% of all U.S. goods that come from China are made by American companies. But we demonize them too, right? Don't we demonize the Chinese as the copycats? And they copy everything, and they're stealing our jobs. Well, that's the other big one. They're stealing our jobs, right? But wait a minute. Are the Chinese twisting Nike's arm? Do they twist Ping's arm to have golf clubs made? Are they twisting? Are they blackmailing Apple? Oh, they must be. Because why? Wait a minute. Why would Apple make their iPhone there? They've got to be doing something. No. There's no blackmail. There's no one's twisting anybody's arm. This is trade. This is how trade works. And we're coming into the political arena. And I just want you to be aware of how it is that we demonize things. So when you hear politicians, you're going to hear politicians on both sides of the aisle. You're going to hear politicians say, we need to bring back U.S. jobs. And I'm okay with that just so long as we're talking about the right jobs. High tech. Low tech? No. Do you remember seeing pictures in your history books of people in New York City jumping out of buildings? There's a fire or something. They're working 12 hours a day, 13 hours a day, 7 days a week. I've been to China. I've been to the factories. 7 days a week, 12 to 14 hours a day. 1 day off a month. Doing this. This is doing 12 to 14 hours a day. Putting caps on pens. Do your parents want you doing this? If I was to do this for an hour, I would start crying for my mom. Save me. I promise. I'll be good.
I was going to throw a left fielder.
Okay, so nonetheless, we don't want those jobs. We're not going to do them. No one's going to do them. Nobody's going to rivet the same piece of metal for 14 hours or 12 hours. We can't do those jobs. We can't do them. In 2009, when the unemployment rate went up to, it was about 20%, it seemed like to me, but I heard numbers closer to 14%. I didn't see a lot of people out there in the fields. I didn't see any too many, we'll say, no, I saw a lot of migrants. But wait a minute, you need jobs, you need money. But you're not willing to go out and pick the lettuce for it. We're not going to be taking, and we are, and rightly so, we are a knowledge-based economy. We are no longer a low-tech manufacturer. We haven't been a low-tech manufacturer for probably 70 years. 60, 70 years. The 70s, they still had low-tech manufacturing, but even that went to Mexico. And then Mexico, in 1992, 93, the Chinese came into play, and they got into the WTO. They got accepted in the WTO. And the Mexicans ended up going through what we call the tequila crisis. The peso devalued. All of that low tech went to China. So what did Mexico do? They said, well, we can't compete on low tech anymore. We have to go high tech. Guadalajara is now the Silicon Valley of all of Latin America. They have more trade agreements than any country in the world. They are the gateway to the United States. There are maquiladoras from every manufacturing firm in the world along the southern border, the U.S. border. We have to look at the threads that bind our economies together as entrepreneurs, because you're going to be doing business globally. I've got news, and I'm willing to bet that most of you already are doing business or looking at doing business, either outsourcing, offshoring, or going to another country to figure out how to get something done. That's a fact. That's a fact. And we have global competition. We absolutely have global competition. So let's not lose sight of commerce and where we need to be. We need to be going everywhere. We need to be building multicultural teams. These are the threads that bind our economies together. This is one part, and I wanted to explain it to you so you understood exactly how oil worked. And here's one last thing, and I'll let you guys go. But oil and gasoline, I get this question all the time. Why is it that the price of oil is so low, but my gas is still expensive? Huh? Refineries, that's right, Nick. Refineries. In the United States, we haven't built a whole lot of refineries in the last 40 years. There's probably been one refinery built in the last 40 years, converting oil into gasoline. Why? Why has there only been one refinery maybe in the last 40 years that's been built in the United States? Supply and demand. You think the CEO, Ben is the CEO of Exxon. Ben, are you in it for the warm, fuzzy, nonprofit feeling? No, wait a minute. Ben, you're in it for the money? Oh. Okay, so Ben's in it for the money. He's the CEO of Exxon. Why aren't you going to build a refinery, Ben? Because if he builds a refinery, then that means that more oil can be converted made into gasoline. And that gasoline becomes in abundance. And the more gasoline there is, the the lower the price of gasoline. And the lower the price of gasoline, the lower Ben's profits are. The lower Ben's profits are, the lower his stock goes. The lower his stock goes, the more angry his shareholders become. The more angry his shareholders become, the less likely it is he has a job tomorrow. Is Ben going to open up a refinery anytime soon? No. No. And here's the other thing. When we talk about drilling in the U.S., who is it that Ben is going to sell the oil to? You know, the feeling is that if we drill, like Michelle said, we will have our own reserves. We will have our own oil ready to go. But wait a minute. Now Ben is a wildcatter in North Dakota, and he's got his own rig. He's got 2 or 3 oil wells. Ben is now a wildcatter. He's doing his own thing. Is Ben going to sell it to the highest bidder, or is Ben going to sell it to the U.S. because the U.S. is where he lives? Ben, who are you going to sell it to? But that's China. So be it. What kind of patriotism is that? That's capitalism, right? So just because we drill here doesn't mean it's going to stay here, does it? Ben's in it to win it. He's not working 16 hours a day in mud and oil in North Dakota where it's freezing. And to me, freezing is below 70 degrees Fahrenheit. He's selling it to whoever is going to pay the highest. Right? So just because we drill here doesn't mean it's staying here. And why has oil come down so far? Why oil a year and a half ago was at $135 a barrel. Where's it at today? Brent crude. 48. It's at $48 a barrel, Brent crude. You know why it's at 48? Michelle. Why?
Because I think it was Saudi, one of the countries refused to stop
But why?
making oil because there was money if they stopped making oil to export.
Close. She's on the right track. So, you know who the biggest threat to Saudi Arabia is? And the biggest threat to OPEC is? It's Ben. It's the wildcatters in North Dakota. That's true. It's the wildcatters in North Dakota. The shale, the fracking. And so Saudi Arabia wants to put Ben out of business. And so what are they doing? They're flooding the market with oil. And have you been hearing about how tough it's been on the North Dakota oil industry lately? It's been difficult. There have been a lot of people that's gone out of business. It costs about, I would say, around $40 to $55 a barrel to pull it out of the ground in North Dakota, depending on the company. The smaller you are, typically the more expensive it is. Saudi Arabia, probably closer to $2 to $6 a barrel. Maybe more. Maybe it's even 20. But I think it's a lot lower than that. They might tell us it's 20 or 30, but it's probably a lot lower than that. So Ben's working to stay alive, not working to make money. At this point, he just wants to stay alive. He's hoping that oil prices come back up. But it seems like $50 a barrel, it doesn't want to get over $50 a barrel. And now, Iran, they're thinking of lifting the sanctions on Iran. And the 6 countries have agreed. You can't get the United States and Russia and China to agree on anything. But they have agreed to lift the sanctions on Iran. So has the United Kingdom, Germany, and France. So what does Iran have a lot of? Oil. So if Iran comes into the game, what else does that do? Potentially, it could add more supply to the market. I've seen things happen where you add more supply, but the price goes up for some reason. So I had somebody ask me the other day, well, does that mean that oil's going to come down in price? No. I've seen crazier things. I've seen crazier things. You would say yes. You would naturally assume yes, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen. Katie.
When I was in the UAE this summer, oil prices doubled, or the price of gas doubled for the consumer. And that's because the countries there are trying to protect themselves economically. And they're also investing more in sustainable energy sources. So a lot of solar panel fields are going up, wind power, things like that.
So they doubled. So instead of being 10 cents a gallon or a liter, it's now 20. Right? That's cheap for us, right?
Yeah, gas in Libya, Saudi, UAE was between $20 and $1 a gallon for the consumer.
Oh, $20 and one. Wait.
In the last few years, it's gone up though.
To how much a gallon?
Well, in the UAE, it's two something now, like around.
$2 and something cents a gallon, huh? Oh, interesting.
Libya, I'm not sure now because of the war, but it used to be just about 20 cents.
You know, in Venezuela, $2 American will buy you 6 months worth of gasoline for your vehicle. 6 months. It's probably closer to 9 or 10 months now because in the last 3 or 4 months, the Venezuelan currency, the bolivar, has depreciated against the U.S. dollar by probably another third. 6 months, boy.